Let's turn it over to South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham. He's a member of the Judiciary Committee. So what would you do if you were Donald Trump?
I'd plead not guilty. I'd get the best lawyer I could, and I'd make my case to the American people that what's happening to me is a danger to you. Uniformity of application of the law is dying in America. All the people that you played, Joe Scarborough and that crowd, I don't remember them saying one word about Hillary Clinton taking her staff taking a hammer to a BlackBerry that the government wanted and destroyed it, bleach bit to a hard drive to erase emails that was under subpoena. I don't remember anybody saying it was bad for Anthony Weiner to have on his computer classified information that was in control of Hillary Clinton. So equal application of the law is dying in this country. If I were President Trump, I'd focus on the future. I'd have faith in the American people. And the final verdict in this case, Jesse, will not be in a courthouse in Miami. This case will not go to trial to verdict before the election. I think the final verdict will be by the American people in November 2024.
If it does go all the way to the Supreme Court on appeal,
right,
what do you think happens there?
Oh, attorney-client privilege has been destroyed here. You know, there's a concept in the law you can't use the privilege to hide a crime. But the idea of a conversation between the attorney and his client has been pretty much destroyed here. Espionage is ridiculous. They're charging the president under the Espionage Act. He did not commit espionage. He may have mishandled classified information similar to what Hillary Clinton did. But the idea of charging him with espionage, I hope, goes all the way to the Supreme Court. There are a lot of legal issues in this case that probably will go to the Supreme Court. But this is not about so much the law, is about who we are as a people. We're living in a country, if you're a Democrat and you're the Secretary of State, you can violate the hell out of the Public Records Act. You can destroy evidence under subpoena. You can allow information to get in the hands of felon, and nothing happens to you. We live in a country where the FBI altered evidence in the Mueller investigation to convince a court that Trump was something he was not, and virtually nothing happened. Remember the Russian investigation where they wanted you to believe that Donald Trump was colluding with the Russians in 2016? The desire to get Trump is destroying this country, and the people have a chance to fix this. So in November 2024, here's what I predict. There will be a backlash against this overreach. People will look at Trump as the solution, not the problem, and he's going to win in November 2024. And this indictment almost certainly secures the nomination for him.
All right, well, Hillary Clinton says Trump voters are in a cult.
The more people who get in against him, his chances actually go up. And then the response that we've seen in polling from Republicans suggests that they're going to stick with him, that it's more of a cult than a political party at this point, and they're going to stick with their leader.
Are you in a cult, Senator?
I'm an American who believes that if you believe Hillary Clinton should be prosecuted, you probably should believe that Trump should be prosecuted. If you believe she should get a pass, Trump should get a pass. No, I'm not in a cult. You know, I have taken the president on when I think he's wrong. But what they're doing to President Trump is a game changer for the presidency. They've taken the law and turned it upside down on numerous occasions to get him. They've lied about information to a court. They've tried to basically create narratives that are not true. They're charging him with espionage. So this desire to get Donald Trump doesn't mean is going too far. You don't have to be in a cult to find this offensive. They're destroying the country in the name of trying to keep one man off the ballot. And that's why I'm so upset. Let the people decide whether Donald Trump should be president. Quit trying to destroy his life through a bunch of bogus legal cases in Manhattan, now in Miami, and eventually in Atlanta.
All right. Senator Graham predicts Donald Trump will be reelected next November.
Yes, I do.
We'll play that tape if it happens. Thank you, Senator.
Yeah, thanks.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.